What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. Now today I wanted to bring to you a video discussing the importance of time in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because when you get to higher level tier 2 competitive events like a regionals or a YCS or anything beyond that, managing your time is one of the most important things as a player that you can do to help maximize your chances of success at a competitive level. Because I think a lot of us would agree, when you're at your locals is not really too strict on time management, because locals is as much of a learning experience as much of it is a playing experience. And while yeah, the local shops are going to manage their time and because they want to eventually go fucking home, but people are much more lenient on time at locals and how long people take, because maybe there's newer players that are trying to try things out, or because everyone's just hanging out having a good time. People maybe aren't too strict on, you know, a 20-30 person local event. But when it comes to tier 2 events, these events are hundreds if not thousands of people, and abiding by a 40-minute round timeline is very important because they need to keep the event going. If you don't abide by these timelines, then the event would go on till like 2-3 in the morning, if not worse, and no one would get to go home. So the reason it's there is to pretty much make sure that play is going and being played at a reasonable pace, and that the players are moving along efficiently. Now, when you're going into an event, I have a clip here from UDS Las Vegas that is perfectly going to exemplify exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to time. So as you can see, Anthony, the Metalphos player, on the left, and German, the Zodiac player, on the right. Now, the Zodiac player on the right has a Utopia the Lightning, no cards in hand, nothing in graveyard that he can trigger, so there's no way that he can do anything else here. You're going to see here in a minute that Anthony's going to go ahead and steal the Invoker with a copy of Alcahis, and then pretty much German's turn is going to be over. So what's so interesting in this scenario is that Anthony now has the opportunity to pretty much win the game outright. All he has to do is clear Lightning, and since German is only on 2,600 life points, there's a myriad of different outs that Anthony can have at his disposal just to clear Lightning. He already has a Metalphos Volflame on board, but in addition to that, he already has his Metalphos scale set. He has cards in the extra deck that are Pendulum monsters that he can bring back and Pendulum summon, so he already, no matter what, has the game sealed away. It's already there, but now Anthony's going to draw for turn, and you guys tell me at what point watching this video clip you think that German should concede the match. If you did not say the moment he flipped Barrage, then you do not know how to efficiently manage your time. The reason for this is very simple. Barrage essentially means that Anthony now has access to a monster like Zodiac Trident. Zodiac Trident can just pop the copy of the Utopia the Lightning that's already on the board. He already has a Volflame that can inflict 2,400 direct damage, and he can barrage into a Whiptail to make sure that that Trident has 1,200 attack and have enough damage to go for game. So German should have immediately the second he saw Barrage scooped up his cards. But something really interesting happens. German doesn't do this. German lets Anthony play out the rest of his turn and waits till the moment that Anthony is going to attack and go for game. Now, I feel this is a huge calculated error on his part because of the fact that it's not like Anthony is playing a deck that isn't really well known. I mean, this isn't like Ice Barrier Turbo or some shit. This is Metalphos Zodiac, and especially with the fact that Balbaboon just got released, this is a deck that a lot of people were thinking was going to be a really good pick going into the format. So what happens is German just lets Anthony continue on with his play, and Anthony ends up performing an entire fucking Lunalight Zodiac combo, which, as we know, can take anywhere from like 3 to 4 minutes just because of the amount of plays and lines of sequencing you have to go through to fully perform this combo. And why I think this was genius from Anthony is because this is game 1, and if you think about it, you already know you're gonna win the game. So as the player knowing that you're already going to win the game, why not waste as much time as possible on the clock to basically make it so that your opponent has less time to use going into games 2 and 3, that they'll be in a much more disadvantageous position if they need to use the time to their advantage when it really gets down to it. This was absolutely genius on Anthony's part, and you're gonna see that this is going to go on for a long time. I have the clip playing here purely to exemplify this, just to show that this combo is still going on. He's still taking his turn. Anthony is literally playing every single possible card he has at his disposal, because as long as he's progressing the game, technically, the game is going to keep going on. He already knows he's going to win. So unless German scoops, Anthony can just do this as long as he wants. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now you're going to see he just draws into a painful decision. He doesn't even need to use the painful decision. He's already got everything he needs. He's literally burning time on the clock. And this just really goes to show how valuable and important time is. Because if it wasn't important in the least, Anthony wouldn't be going through this. He would have just made the Dryden attack and just ended the game altogether and moved on to game 2. But if he can shave those precious few minutes off the clock that German might need in game 2 or 3 to make a comeback, this puts him in a great position, because at the very least, let's say it doesn't even go to a game 3. Let's say it just stops at game 2. If it stops at game 2, then at the very worst, Anthony's going to get a draw if he loses game 2, but he's going to win if it goes to time and he's higher on life. So now you're seeing here he's pendulum summoning, and if you're actually listening to the commentators, if you watch this match live, they are just saying at this point, like, he should have scooped the second even the pendulum summon came down. I say the second barrage flip, there was no reason to, but it's just, I find it just hilarious the amount of time that has gone by. Like, you can watch and go back in this video and see when I started this clip, and it's still going on. And like I said, I know some players want to sometimes look to see what the players' decks are capable of doing, but it's just hilarious when you see him going into a hard summon Tiger Mortar just because he has the ability to do so, and you see here that German finally scoops the second Anthony drops the Dryden and pops it with its effect. So again, I really just wanted to show you guys that clip to exemplify just how much time can possibly be wasted there, and think about it. That was just game 1. You have 3 minutes allocated for side decking when you're moving on to games 2 and 3. So that's another 3 minutes that you're possibly going to burn, potentially even 6 minutes if you're going into game 3, and that doesn't get added onto your 40 minutes. You have to just make it all happen. So it's really like you have 34 minutes in your match realistically that you have to spend between 3 separate games. And little things like this actually matter and can help separate some of the average players from the above average players, because above average players can actually utilize the clock to their advantage. Another example I want to say here is when you're going into your side deck and moving into games. Sometimes it just makes perfect sense that if your opponent went first in game 1 and they create an absolutely unbreakable board, but you look at it and you think to yourself, can I possibly win this game even if I out this board? And you'll see a lot of the time some players just scoop up their cards in the first 2 or 3 minutes, because after that, they know that they just want to go to the second game. They get the option to choose whether they go first or second, and by doing so, they know that even if I tried to win this game, the chances were highly unlikely that I was going to, so they don't want to waste any more time on that game. They want to give themselves as much time as humanly possible to be able to win as many games as they can, and being able to strategically use time like that is very important. Even more so when you're going into game 3, because sometimes you'll look at the clock and there's only 2 or 3 minutes left in the round. So let's say you're in a position where you're down on life points, you're down on cards, and maybe you could pull off a win in time, but you're really going to be playing the odds if you do. A good player might scoop up their cards, take the loss, and then go into game 3. again, they get the option to choose whether or not to go first or second, and because they'll have the option to give themselves the better start going into game 3, they're going to do that. The game's going to go into time, and then there's only 5 turns that the players have to finish. And as we all know, going first in the current format is absolutely critical because you can do stuff like the Lunalight Black Sheep combo. You can create all these crazy boards, rip cards out of your opponent's hands, set your dimensional barriers, your solemn strikes, do all these absolutely nutty things, and being able to do that while also putting your pressure not only under the cards that you have on the board, but from the clock, really can just, like I said, separate the average players from the above average players, and it's really a lesson that I feel is very valuable for a lot of us to learn. So guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about time management in Yu-Gi-Oh! And what strategies you have that you like to employ as well, because I feel like this is something a lot of us could really learn from. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, and also be sure to back me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.